I'm glad to invite Apurva Purohit. Uh, I would say she's an extremely dashing lady. I've never seen her with less energy at any time. And she always brings a smile to my face. A very short introduction. She's, I would say, she's a woman who inspires young leaders and people like me. But at the helm of it, she's held important positions across different industries. And some of it will come out during our chat. But for me, what is significant is that she is also an author of two books, and she's also started a startup where she's very, very involved in. And we'll talk about that during the course. And Apurva, if you want to just say one line about yourself, what would that be?
She makes a difference wherever she goes.
Awesome. So that requires a clap. Yeah. So, Apurva, you've been on LinkedIn and I've been on LinkedIn as well. And there was a particular post on LinkedIn that caught my attention, which you spoke about. And it was about me time. And this is something that I've been picking up in my work. And I'm suddenly saying that why are people talking about me time and specifically women? I just wanted your perspective on that and why do you feel that is important today?
So specifically for women, Priya, I personally believe that we spend our entire life wearing this mantle, which we think is very, very positive of multitasking. And I think it's a tool that men have marketed very well, that women are great multitaskers. And as a consequence of that, we are ending up doing a lot more than we can actually pick up and do well. And thus, I see a lot of women burning out. And we all know about the diversity pyramid, 30% at the entry level, 15% at the middle level, 5% at the top. And the reason partly the reason for this pyramid is the fact that women are burning out. And they're burning out because they're picking up too much on their platter. And therefore, I think it is the job of all of us who've gone through this journey, who have been multitaskers and realized that the negative impact it had on our lives and our health, to be able to stand up and say, multitasking is not good. Make time for yourself. Make time to focus and prioritize and pick up just a few things. So, which is why this conversation on me time is becoming more and more important. And it's very important for us to stand up and be the opposing side to the multitasking brigade and say, you need to focus, you need to prioritize, you need to carve out some me time to take care of yourself and your health. The other thing, Priya, I'm also seeing is that a lot of women suffer from guilt. Guilt that they're leaving their children and going to work. Guilt that, they're not being able to be perfect at everything that they do. Guilt that they are actually even working. A lot of women come and tell me this, that in our families, it is seen that the husband's job is for the family, whereas my job is just for me to satisfy my potential. It's not something that is beneficial to the family, which is so incorrect. We all know a double income will make a mass of difference to a family. So I think we all need to say that, me time is not being selfish. Me time, having a career is not being self-centered. Thinking about yourself and taking care of your health is not being selfish.
Absolutely. I think this is so important. And do you think there are marketing and communication implications to this? Because there are a lot of brands who talk to women. Is there something out there that you feel very strongly about in terms of how it's being portrayed?
Unfortunately, what I've seen of marketing and branding and communication, either there have been those stereotypes of the woman in the kitchen and the man on the dining table, or then they've not been able to manage that balance of being able to show women as individual empowered human beings who exist apart from the roles that they have to play. Unfortunately, pulling them outside of this role of
Mm,
mother, wife, daughter,
mm.
and seeing them as individuals. I have not seen any brand do it, and therefore they falter. And maybe one of the reasons, Priya, is that again at leadership levels, even in marketing organizations or
Yeah,
agencies, where are the women?
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I wanted to understand because me time is important for everyone. But I think large part of it is this whole multitasking, uh, trying to manage the different roles. And what you said was significant that her job or what she's doing, her career, is not something that's really recognized or it's going to add value. So as a result, even the portrayal of that in real life is not, it's not coming out as the way it should be. Yeah. So that's a fantastic thought. Apurva, we just finished Women's Day, International Day, Break the Bias, and I know you were massively busy talking to people, sharing your perspective. Is there something out there that you feel with the theme Break the Bias? Is there something that you have spoken about, which I would like to even share with this audience who listens to Thoughtful Thursdays?
Yeah, I personally thought it was a great topic for this year, because I think there are two types of biases that exist, right? And they are
Mm,
not very obvious biases. One is the subconscious bias that is existing largely in society, largely amongst even the most uh, uh, empowered, educated male. And
mm,
I just want to talk about it for a couple of minutes. One is that, I don't know whether you saw the Pew research that happened recently, where they asked a whole bunch of, a large sample size. You're a researcher, so you know that it was a very, very significant sample size.
mm,
And they asked them that, do you believe men and women should have equal rights? And of course, everybody said this is 2022. Of
mm,
course, everybody should
mm,
have equal rights. Then they asked the same set of people that, do you believe when jobs are scarce, who has more right to a job? And the
mm,
answer significantly was that men have more of a right to a job when jobs are scarce than a woman. The
mm,
same
mm,
people,
mm,
so they are also not seeing the contradiction in their mind. On the one hand, you're saying that, men and
mm,
women have equal rights. On the other hand, you're saying a man has the first right to a job. So what is it saying about our internal biases? And I think
mm,
that is sort of cascading everywhere, in
mm,
the salaries, in when there is, when you have to, as a manager, you have to take a call between,
mm,
do you keep the guy on the job, or the
mm,
lady, and you often say, hers is the second income, it's okay if
mm,
she's not working, let me
mm.
support
The guy.
the guy,
Yeah.
because his job is supporting an entire family. And I think these are the thoughts that,
I think it's an unconscious loop that we've got into, and
and
it's
society,
playing out. It's playing out. Yeah.
it's playing out. And I think the other bias which I spend a lot of time talking about is to the women themselves, that
Mm,
before we start, worrying about the biases outside, let us also look at the bias inside of
correct.
us.
Mm,
The bias that we can only be good in our careers or have a family. Why is
mm,
it not an and? Why is it
mm,
an either or? Why is it that at a particular point you reach a particular point in your career, and then you turn around and say, "Okay, this is good enough. I don't think I'll be able to make a push for the
mm,
top."
mm,
What is holding you back? It's your internal critic, it's your
mm,
internal negative bias about yourself, that, okay, I'll be a good vice president, but I don't think I can be a great CEO.
mm.
I think these are the biases we have to shatter within ourselves also.
I think this is absolutely brilliant what you said that because at a particular mark, I think there's a lot of self doubt. There's a lot of, I think what you said is the inner critic that am I good for that particular role? Yeah. And in introspection, possibly we all have that. And I would like to acknowledge that at some point of time it would have flashed in my mind. Yeah. How do you do all of this? Am I really suited for it? Yeah. And I think that acknowledgement is very important. And I'm glad you touched on that. This is fantastic the way we are going. And I think we're going to finish on the third question that I have that I always find you inspiring the way you speak because I think there's no pretense. You share it as it is and you want to make a difference. What are the one or two things that you feel emerging leaders? And I'm saying it from a genderless perspective, because that's what I always believe in. What is it that you feel that is important for them to really emerge as leaders in whatever field that they are pursuing today?
So I would say, Priya, there are a couple of things which I think are very, very relevant. The first one obviously emerges out of the last 2 years that we've gone through, right? We've seen
Mm,
everything upended. We've seen paradigms change. We've seen old habits die. We've seen new ways of working, new ways of living, new ways of thinking about ourselves evolve. And we should not, in a sense, waste a crisis. While it's
mm,
horrible, and there's no doubt about it that
mm,
many people have been hugely impacted. As we come out of this, I think there have to be some learnings which we have to incorporate in ourselves as leaders. And I would say the first learning is that we have to understand that things as we knew have changed forever, and they will
mm,
continue to change. Change is the only constant. And
mm,
sometimes change took a decade, sometimes change took a generation. Today,
mm,
change is happening every 3 years.
mm,
How, as emerging leaders, will we cope with this? And I think the only way to cope with change is to be agile mentally, to be
mm,
willing to learn, to be willing to change, and to look around, be observant, be reflective, look around and see, constantly be willing to say, okay, okay, maybe it worked 5 years ago, but
mm,
maybe there's a new way of doing things. Maybe there's
mm,
a new way of dealing with my with the Gen Z,
mm,
millennials, etc.
mm.
Maybe the
Yeah.
old leadership styles didn't work, and the willingness to learn, the willingness to be agile, I think is the first recommendation I would make to leaders today. That,
Mm,
and be aware. To learn, you have to be aware. You have to be observant. Can't
mm,
go into your ivory tower, right? Look at me. I mean, at the age of 55, I've started something which is non-media, which I spent 30 years doing. This is a
mm,
food business. This is an FMCG brand. This is a
mm,
digital brand. But I'm doing it right, and I'm
mm,
doing it well. How? Because I'm also willing to learn,
mm.
willing to change. I'm learning from the 23-year-old who's working with me currently, right?
Sweet. I think this is important what you said. Learning from a younger person
Ah,
and not saying I know it more better than you. Yeah.
because you don't. I mean, a 23-year-old knows far more. They've grown up. This is a digital native, and that's the world that we are
Mm,
currently in. They have spent their entire lives being digital first, whereas for us it has been digital third,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so so how do you change that? Only when you learn from them, right? So I think
Correct.
that is an experience is important, but it is overrated in the current, because
Correct.
your experience was in a completely
Yeah.
different ecosystem.
Yeah.
So I think that's one learning. The second learning, which is something that I tell everybody and in every possible talk, that again um, we over index on talent and skill and grades and
Mm,
intelligence. I think
mm,
the correct thing to index on is perseverance.
mm,
I have seen this in 32 years of working, Priya, that the people finally, whether man, woman, and especially women, who have made the cut and reached the top, people like you,
mm,
they have not let go. They
mm.
just kept at it in success, in failure, in good times and bad times. They just got up in the morning, self motivated, and started. Almost
Absolutely.
kick yourself on the backside and start the day.
Correct.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
nobody to motivate us, right? So we are supposed to be leaders. So you have to
You
believe
can.
it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that perseverance and not letting go, that's for me the most important driver of success. And finally, the third thing I say tell everybody is, when we talk about success, again, society, our educational institutes teach us that success is relative.
Mm.
you know in where do you fit in that
That
curve?
girl. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So top 25%, top 5%. um, how are you doing as compared to your neighbor, as compared to your friend, as compared to your peer, right?
Mm,
And I think we have to understand, and I'm hoping the last 2 years taught us, that success is very much individual. It is
Mm.
side of us. We have to decide what scale we will measure our life against, Priya. It is not a scale that should be decided by our boss, by the society, by our neighbors, by our
Yes, absolutely.
parents. I decide this is the scale against which I have to be measured, and I therefore will decide how successful or badly
Yeah.
I have done against this scale.
I think this is so, so important for young people today, right? Where we're constantly chasing what other people are doing. We also give up. I think this whole not persevering things. And I think the pandemic has taught us many things that, no matter what is happening, we still need to get up and move around and do the things that we have to do. You said something very important, Apurva, that while you've always been in the media business, now you've got into the food business. There is something that you said, it was not about the experience. What is it that made you rise up to this challenge and say, I can do this also? What is that one thing that made you feel that I can do this?
You know, as I told you, I've worked for 32 years and in advertising and media. But at a very young age, I became a CEO. I was just
Mm,
like 20, 29 or something where I started running businesses. So I have
mm,
nearly 20 plus years of being a business leader. And it's not leadership as many people talk about it, right? Leader of people,
mm,
inspiring leader, etc.
mm,
It is being a leader in the sense of running businesses, scaling up businesses,
mm, mm,
figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Okay.
mm,
Now, I think that experience, and
mm,
you almost start smelling
mm. Yeah,
businesses after so
okay.
many years of, I mean, just as you would do in your own, I mean, having researched so many brands, you can smell what works and what
You see
doesn't.
the opportunity. You see
Yes,
the
yes,
opportunity.
absolutely. So I think applying those patterns of learning, not the specific, okay, so I have run a print company, now I can run only another print company. That I think people limit themselves when they think like that. I have run businesses. I have seen upturns and downturns. I have
Mm,
seen good days and bad days. I've seen startups, mature businesses, failing businesses, high competition businesses, low competition businesses. What are the patterns I have learned from there in the last 30 years? Can I apply those patterns here? And that I think gave me the confidence that, you know, it's just
it's
another,
doable.
yeah.
You can do it. And I like that word. And I was hoping that in my heart that you would say that learning how to join the dots and the patterns and to
Yes.
see the opportunities. And
Yes.
I would like to leave that thought with all the people who are going to be listening to this lovely chat with Apurva, that it is all about the patterns and the connecting of the dots and the experiences that we have, rather than limiting ourselves, rather than telling us ourselves that we can't do this, and to keep persevering. Apurva, this has been a wonderful discussion with you today morning. And it was something that I always wanted to do, and it has happened. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priya. All the best. Thank you for inviting me.